To start our call, I would like to welcome Julio Figueroa, Chairman of the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce Legislative Advocacy Committee. Julio, let me get you unmuted here.
All right, thank you, Brandon, and good morning to everyone. And on behalf of the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome all of you who have joined us via the phone and also through this webcast. The Chamber is proud to host these calls for the benefits of our business members and community, helping to connect elected officials to their constituents. Today's featured speaker is Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, representing California's 56th Assembly District, which includes areas of Coachella Valley, as well as Blythe and Imperial Valley. Before assuming state office, he served as the first elected mayor of the city of Coachella. Assemblymember Garcia presides as a chair for the Assembly Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife, expanding the Desert Health Care District boundary to include our entire Coachella Valley, the creation of the Community Air Protection Program, and recent California Parks and Water Bond, allocating $200 million for the Salton Sea and New River, which ranks among his most notable legislative achievements. Assemblymember Garcia, welcome to today's call, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julio. Thank you, Brandon, and certainly thank you to Joshua and the leadership of the Chamber of Commerce for inviting us to be part of this dialogue that's extremely important now more than ever, that we continue to be accessible and providing information on what's happening in Sacramento and the work that's being done here by our local district office. It's an honor to be able to serve you. As Julio's mentioned, I represent the 56th district, which is the Imperial, Palo Verde, and Eastern Coachella Valley areas. And this is now our third term in office. Today, we have a good group of individuals who will be helping us decipher some of the most important, questions and information that people are asking about as it relates to the state of the economy, where we find ourselves today, the activities going on as it relates to COVID-19, and then, of course, all of the programs that are available for our residents, our families, and certainly our small businesses here. I'm going to share with you that with us today, we have Jason Cisney, who is the Budget Director for Speaker Rendon's office. We also have Tony Simons, Chief Consultant with the Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy. And we're real grateful to the chair of that committee, Sabrina Cervantes, who is also a local from the Coachella Valley, who now lives and represents the Western Riverside County region. We have Katrina Smith, who is with the Orange County Inland Empire SBDC Network, Joaquin Tijerina, Director of the Coachella Valley SBDC, and Kim Scanlon, Project Director for the Women's Business Center, who's always doing amazing work here locally, and many of you probably know her already. So thank you again for all those who are participating. I'm told we have over 60 people on and about 100 people registered. And so very grateful for all of you to take your time to join us. Clearly, the COVID-19 crisis is something that we've never seen before. And many of us are responding to this pandemic in ways that we probably never imagined that we would, including our small business communities who have really taken a hit as it relates to the essential services list of jobs that has been put together by the state and the county to ensure that we're protecting the public health and well-being of folks, but at the same time, providing these very essential services. I'd like to just go over a couple of things that are recent in terms of announcements that have been made by the state, the governor in particular. And yesterday, I think, was somewhat of a breath of fresh air with still some questions remaining in terms of when do we open up the economy. And there were 6 specific, what I call guiding principles that were set up for us to consider as we begin to slowly reintegrate, business activity in our local communities. And I'll go through those one by one. The first one is the ability to monitor and protect our communities through testing, contact tracing, isolating, and supporting those who are positive or exposed. That's going to really require us to continue to follow the orders, but at the same time, look at science and look at models that are being provided to us by our scientists and our medical professionals in terms of the current state of circumstances here in our own backyard. The issue of preventing infection in people who are at risk for more severe COVID-19, that is a question of do and will we see an additional wave of infections coming our way? And as the governor has mentioned time and time again, that we are preparing for a peak in the middle of May. And so keeping a close eye on that will be extremely important. Hospital and health systems, to be able to handle surges, we do live in an area that has been historically medically underserved. And we have to keep that in mind as we begin to, again, open up our economy without making sure that the first two risk factors aren't under control, or at least us have a sense of where things are headed. The fourth is develop therapeutics to meet the demand. Of course, the capacity that's tied to our hospital infrastructure is going to be key to be able to, again, begin opening up our local economy for businesses to continue their services. The ability for businesses, schools, and childcare facilities to support physical distancing. And this, the governor gave some examples that business may not be as usual, the way we have been used to, at least the first several months moving into this opening of our economy. And again, this will vary from county to county, being that circumstances related to the COVID-19 infections and spreads may be different, but our hope is that we can follow these 6 guiding principles. And the last one is the ability to determine when to reinstate certain measures as the stay-home measure in case we begin to see another wave of these infections taking place in our community. Those are the guiding principles that, yesterday on a call with our congressman, our supervisor, and our colleague and friend who represents the West Valley of this area, Chad Mays, we're talking about it. Are these 6 guiding principles that perhaps our county can adopt, our cities can adopt, so that we have a standard uniform approach to how we go about protecting the public health of the people of Coachella Valley and making sure that we're able to reintegrate business activities in our local communities to put people back to work and obviously make sure that the hardships that everyone is experiencing slowly begin to turn around. So those are, that's an announcement that was made yesterday by Governor Newsom as it relates to how we may be able to move the economy forward. Now, one question that many people probably have is, so when does that happen? Well, projections are that in May, we may see a peak in COVID-19 positive cases. So that tells me that we're still a few weeks away from being able to assure people that the economy and businesses will get back to an open setting where we will begin to see our local economies begin to pick up from this pause and devastating economic situation that we find ourselves in today. The more recent announcement that the governor's made is he's decided to form an alliance with governors of like minds and who have similar guiding principles as it relates to protecting the public health of their constituents and moving the regional economies forward. And that is a partnership with West Coast states, Oregon and Washington, who also will be participating in what the governor is talking about in purchasing of economies of scale as it relates to PPE and other essential protective gears and equipments that we need to provide our essential workers that are on the front lines, like our medical practitioners, our first responders, and other essential service workers, like our school employees that are out there working, at the same time our farm workers, and those who are working at the grocery stores. And the list is long, but I think the point is made that by working with these 3 states, we'll be able to do so and collectively begin to see the flattening of the curve in the interest of the Western regions. And so that's some of the more recent announcements. The governor has taken some executive orders to be able to protect renters and home buyers, and at the same time, help support our local businesses as it relates to rents. And there's a lot of questions about that will probably come up today, and we want to be able to answer those, where, we want to make sure that our small businesses who also have rents to pay are able to take advantage of these moratoriums, to be able to work with the landlords in order to ensure that they may stay in their business, especially obviously if they are an essential business, and those that are not, that there be some arrangements worked on. And that's something that we'll touch on a bit later as well. You all are aware, and if you have any questions, I look forward to being able to address some of those as it relates to the unemployment insurance that the state is providing, the $600 in addition that will be coming for those who are already receiving unemployment, the $600 that are available through the pandemic unemployment program that is coming from the federal government that in 2 weeks will begin. And that is also $600 for 39 weeks. And for those who are finishing up their unemployment, they will be able to have an extension for 13 weeks of $600 a week as well. And we can talk a little more about that. In terms of business relief, there are some programs that I know that our friends who are on the panel with us will be talking about. But at the same time, I just wanted to let you know that our office remains open, active, and available from 9 to 5 to serve the needs of our constituents and our business community. We are not in session in Sacramento, and all of our time and energy is focused here on the district to make sure that we are attending the needs of our constituents. And again, those are the families and our businesses that are seeing the hardship taking place as a result of this circumstance. So I just wanted to stop there. We have, again, as I mentioned, some great individuals who will provide some updates. And, you know, Jason is part of the leadership team with Speaker Rendon's office. He is our finance director, our budget connoisseur. And I've asked him to talk to us and be as real as he needs to be with all of us as it relates to the state of the economy. What are the current projections that are being made? An overview of some of the early investments that the state has made in addressing this pandemic, and also what lies ahead. There are a lot of questions in terms of what does the budget look like for next year. We're in a very different circumstance than the federal government. We don't have the ability to print money and to be able to say, well, if we don't have enough money to balance the budget, we can print more money and put the programs and services forward with fully funded revenues to address all of the needs that are taking place today and that we need to fund through our obligations that we have. So I wanted to just stop there and pass over the floor to Jason Tisney, the Budget Director of Office of Speaker Rendon. So thank you again for your attention, and we look forward to having a good dialogue with you all who have taken the time to connect with us today. So Jason, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, thank you. And it's a pleasure to talk with you today, albeit under difficult circumstances. As the Assemblymember mentioned, I advise Speaker Anthony Rendon and the Democratic members of the Assembly on the state budget. Speaker Rendon represents 9 cities in Southeast Los Angeles County, Lakewood, Southgate, Paramount, and 6 others. And so in addition to advising the Democratic members of the Assembly, also hearing from the Speaker's district in Southeast LA County a lot of the challenges that families and small businesses are facing, as well as school districts, city and county governments, and the like. Obviously, we're in an unprecedented economic crisis. It is not the sort of economic downturn that we typically plan for. In February, which seems so long ago, the state had about a 4.3% unemployment rate. And we're a big state. We have 58 counties. Riverside County actually had a slightly lower unemployment rate than the state as a whole, about 4.1% if I recall. Other counties like Imperial County have much higher unemployment rates, but the statewide average was a little over 4% unemployment. To date, as of Monday, we've had about 2.8 million Californians apply for unemployment. That number is very high in a very short period of time. And over the next couple of months, what that tells us is that we will see the unemployment rate in the state, which was about 4%, rise to at least 15% and potentially much higher to 20 or even 30% potentially. And so that gives everyone a sense, which is already obvious, of the scale of the challenges we face just in terms of workers and their families. But obviously, the businesses that employ them have challenges of their own as the crisis unfolds. The good news, if there is any, is that at least at the state level here in California, we are a lot better prepared than other states. In my job, I stay in touch with my counterparts from other states, and we have worked, the legislature working with Governor Brown and now Governor Newsom, to build roughly about $20 billion of state level reserves for the budget over the last few years. And those are going to be helpful as we go into crafting a new budget by June 15th for the next year, but they won't solve all of the state's problems. We expect just in this quarter alone to have revenue losses that exceed those total amounts of reserves. And so that means that in addition to deploying those reserves and making some pretty prudent budget decisions, we're going to need a lot of help from the federal government. Federal government's already stepped up and provided emergency funding for the state, but we're probably going to need a lot more. And just last week, Governor Newsom was among the governors contacting the congressional delegation, saying that not only state governments, but also local governments of all sizes, big and small around the country, need more assistance from Congress in order to deal with the revenue losses and the challenges that come out of this crisis. Just really briefly, before the legislature recessed earlier in March, it passed two bills that gave Governor Newsom over $1 billion of new budget authority to address the crisis. And he has been making announcements of some of those allocations going out, principally for hospitals and surge capacity, buying N95 and other masks, and helping to ensure that our healthcare workforce has the supplies it needs. He's been making allocations of that funding, but the total amount that the state will spend will be well beyond that $1.1 billion under the governor's emergency powers to respond to this crisis. And so we expect that he will be making more announcements of funding, and when the legislature reconvenes in May, our budget process will also be considering additional funds to respond to the crisis. Some of the funds that the governor's allocated have been for small businesses. I'm sure that other panelists will discuss some of those items in addition to the federal response. But that sums up my little introduction here.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, and I'm sure that there will be some questions for you as we get into the question and answers. We have some city government representatives with us, Jason. We have some folks from special districts like the healthcare district that's doing an amazing job in partnership with other folks out here. And so I anticipate that people will have some questions regarding some of the comments you've made regarding the local government and other special districts and revenue. So we'll go to Tony Simons, who's the Chief Consultant for the Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy. And as I mentioned, we're very grateful to the Chair, Sabrina Cervantes, for allowing us to have Tony with us this morning and talk a little bit about some of the state programs. And I've also asked Tony to talk a little bit about some of the concepts and ideas that are being tossed around. We know that when we get back to legislative session, much of our focus will be COVID-19 and economic recovery-based driven pieces of legislation. And so there are some concepts that are being thrown out there, and we're also looking to some of our local representatives to give us some thoughts and ideas to be able to begin considering what the legislative package looks like as it relates to economic recovery in our small business community and supporting our families. So Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblymember Garcia. So our committee, the Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy, has a very unique role in the legislature. We actually are the only committee that's asked to be an advocate for businesses. And we take that very seriously. Our charge from our chair, Assemblymember Cervantes, is in doing that to really be sure that we're looking at the practical. Do programs work? Do they connect? Where are the gaps? As you can imagine, in the time of the coronavirus, that this goal is quite challenging, but it is always at the utmost in our minds about how we're going to be helping small businesses and entrepreneurs and workers in the gig economy, as well as those organizations, particularly who are out there and helping them. In accomplishing this, our committee's actually been doing as a three-pronged approach. The first is that we're using our JETI committee website to share resources with stakeholder groups. It is not a particularly attractive website because what we're actually doing is showing on most of our pages the actual links. We're trying to help our stakeholders update their own websites. There are, all of us, I'm sure, on this call are getting many, many emails, way too much for us to all be able to read. So we're trying to cut that down by using our website. So our website is ajed.assembly.ca.gov/content/COVID-19-resources. And we'll share that online. You'll see that we have everything from in-depth fact sheets relative to the CARES Act, to guidance that puts out by the Small Business Administration, to the GoBiz website. So really trying to make it easy and a place that you can check things out. We also have listed free webinars that you can link to learn more about activities. Aside from our website, we're also 3 times a week sending out JETI economic business and business development updates relative to COVID-19. I'm spending a lot of my days each day looking in depth at what's the Federal Reserve issuing. Are there new guidance on particular programs? And 3 times a week, they send that out to stakeholder groups, again, trying to cut down on the huge volume of information and try to become a place that people can count on to get that. We're also holding meetings every other week with our stakeholder groups to facilitate the ability of the organizations to work together and to also identify issues that we can then carry forward to the leadership in the Assembly, the Budget Committee probably, and also the administration for the things that we're finding. Before I get into some of the program things, let me just say this, that yes, we will see some very significant economic downturns. But what's important to know is that these are things that we collectively have decided to do. We've decided that we're going to adhere to the stay-at-home order. We're going to have that certain businesses are not going to operate. I think some of the rhetoric in the newspapers when they're normally tracking a recession or a huge economic downturn, there's hyperbolic language that's often used. In this case, in order to protect the health and welfare of the people of California, a decision has been made to pull back and put the economy on hold. We are going to see very high levels of unemployment, and we have programs for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We are going to see the numbers for retail, the number for a number of economic indicators are going to be down. We have to remember this is something that we chose because we needed it for a higher purpose. Now, as we go through the stay-at-home orders, as we look and we're in our suppression period trying to bend the curve, there are a number of actions. This is unprecedented federal and state cooperation that are doing things like trying to stabilize the income of households. It's the early days. I know it's very tough for a lot of households, but there are dollars coming. The governor has negotiated limits on residential evictions. There's a lot of activity about trying to hold back on commercial evictions for non-payment. We have activities about not cutting. The Public Utilities Commission has been active to not have electricity cut off, water cut off. We have, there's been agreements with insurers to make sure that they covered COVID-19 testing, healthcare, and the Covered California has opened. Enrollment in Covered California has actually just reported a 300% increase in enrollees during the weeks of March 20th to April 10th. So activities around stabilizing household incomes, understanding there is going to be higher levels of unemployment, and this also impacts businesses. There's a number of programs about keeping workers on. I'm sure we're going to hear later today about the work share program, where hours might be cut back on an individual, but we'll have an unemployment insurance type program that will come in and make up some of those dollars. There's tax credits at the federal level for sharing the cost of keeping people on payroll. There is a forgivable loan program out of the federal government, the Payment Protection Program, that if employers use it for payroll costs, it is actually 100% forgiven. This is a small business program. We have replacement income programs, unemployment insurance, which the Assemblyman mentioned, but we also have a new product, and that is a unemployment type insurance, this time for independent contractors, recognizing that our economy has shifted in the years and not everybody has that traditional 9-to-5 job with a company. There's also deferral on taxes, federal and state deferral on income taxes, deferral on sales tax. Even large businesses can request deferrals on sales tax if they're having a problem. For small businesses, there's actually 100% deferral for up to a year, a maximum of $50,000, kind of a bridge loan, a mini loan, and that's small businesses are entitled to that today. On property taxes, the governor worked with the counties, and we have in writing an agreement that to the best of their ability, they're going to not put penalties on any late payments related to property taxes if that lateness is related to the pandemic. Business assistance. We've got an economic impact disaster loan program. We have paycheck protection program. There are also deferrals on existing SBA loans that are available. And should the federal loan programs not work, the state has stepped in and the state has said that we will activate our state small business disaster loan program, loan guarantee program as a backstop. In all of that, it's not in any way to suggest that everyone's costs are covered. There is going to be economic pain. But these programs are designed, and they are starting to put the money out. These are designed in order to help everyone get through the next couple of weeks as the unemployment insurance checks comes in, as your payment protection checks come into businesses. Now, there are groups that are still hurting, and that includes independent contractors, low-wage workers, people working in the restaurant, the tourism, the retail trade. It's very difficult to put enough services out for them. So there's probably local programs, and we're probably going to need to do more. People that are working without full documentation are particularly at risk at this time, and the homeless. So essentially, what has happened is COVID-19 and our response to it, the issues that we had been tackling as a state have become more significant. And those are the challenges in January, and those are the challenges today. We'll talk a little more about programs when you get to your experts. Let me take a minute and just talk about some of the issues that we're looking at relative to legislation. We're looking at developing an equity protocol about state funding. It's very apparent that if we continue to do what we've always done, there will be many, many communities and groups of individuals that continue to be unserved. So we're looking at an equity protocol. We're looking at funding for capacity building for the important programs like the Small Business Technical Assistance Program that our SBDCs and our women's centers are participating in. We've also identified additional funds that need to be going to our small business disaster loan guarantee program providers. We're looking at maintaining program levels for small businesses while the federal government is coming in with some additional dollars if the state doesn't maintain their commitment to the small business program. California will not benefit from these federal augmentations. We'll just be back where we would have been anyway. We're also looking at program changes, and this is where people on the call can be very helpful. We're looking at what changes need to happen in order to make this program actually work on the ground. And then moving forward, we're looking at a small business early warning system. Most of data is quite lacking. It lags, not lacking, it lags. Even when we're doing measurements, we're not hearing about what's happening for a year or more. And so one of the issues that we're looking at is, can we create a real-time tracking system for small businesses? You're going to hear about some good programs. I'm going to stop there. Give it back to the Assembly member.
Thank you, Tony. And I know, again, people will have some questions for you. So please stick around and be ready. We have now Katrina Smith, who's the representative from the Inland Empire SBDC network, also I think doing work in the Orange County area SBDC network, as well as our local SBDC Center and the Small Business Women's Business Center are the folks that are interfacing with many of our small business representatives and those who are really in dire need of this information. So without further ado, we'll have Katrina Smith make some introductory remarks. Katrina.
I apologize, Assemblymember. I do have them unmuted. Let me try to check this out. I apologize for that.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So my name is Katrina Smith. I'm the Associate Director for the Small Business Development Center. I'm going to really quickly kind of just start with, we have daily webinars that is really geared towards all businesses in Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. So I sent Brandon the link to register, but every day at 3 o'clock, we're going through everything related to COVID-19 funding. So the EIDL, the PPP, the state loan guarantee program, and then other opportunities that are out there as well, some city loan programs, as well as grants if they are. So we are really diving into everything related to COVID-19 funding. So we do a live Q&A, so if there's questions, we're more than happy to answer those as well. So what I'm going to do today is just briefly go over the two main COVID-19 funding opportunities, the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, as well as the PPP, so the Paychecks Protection Program. So I've sent Brandon as well a Dropbox link that has all of the resources that we've been talking about on our daily 3 p.m. webinars, which will also include these FAQs that I'm going to go through today. So the EIDL, again, is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This is a loan that you directly apply through the SBA portal. So it's through covid19relief.sba.gov. The applications can take as quickly as 15 minutes. There's three main things that they're asking for in this application process. They're asking for the number of employees. They're asking for 2019 revenue as well as 2019 COGS, which can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're in the service industry. It's really going to be your cost of service. And that is how they are calculating the loan. You do not have the opportunity to request a loan amount. It is completely internal, done at the SBA level. But really, what can you use this loan for? So it can be for fixed expenses, mortgage, AP, operating expenses, as well as some payroll. The loan can go up to $2 million. It is in term with a 3.75% interest rate. Again, small business owners can qualify for this. We are encouraging people that if you have multiple business structures, ITINs, that you can apply for every business. There is a piece onto this loan that you have the potential to receive up to $10,000 emergency fund. Basically, that fund is to go into your bank account prior to the entire loan. It's really based on the number of employees. So if you have 2 employees, you'll receive potentially up to $2,000. If it's 7 employees, up to $7,000. Up to, if you have 20 employees, it is capped at $10,000. But this is an emergency fund. That up to a $10,000 emergency fund is the only piece that has that forgivable option. Otherwise, the rest of the loan is it is a loan. It is a 30-year term at 3.75% interest rate. So switching over into the PPP, which is the Paychecks Protection Program, I apologize. This loan is really geared towards exactly that. It is the maintaining and protecting of payroll. So this one, again, it's geared towards small business owners. This one has a much larger forgivable piece to where if you spend at least 75% of the loan on payroll, which includes not only salaries and wages, but the state and local taxes as well. If you spend 75% of the loan on payroll, the entire loan itself will be forgivable. So this is a huge piece to this. The way that they are calculating this is that they are taking your average monthly payroll for the last 12 months, COVID, the 12 months prior to COVID. They're taking your average monthly payroll. They're multiplying that average amount by 2.5, and that is how they're determining your loan. Again, it's supposed to be carried for 2 months essentially of payroll, and then that other 0.5% or 25% really can be used on payroll, rent, or other things like payroll, rent, utilities, interest on any debt incurred prior to February 15th. If you do not receive the forgiveness on this loan, meaning you do not spend at least 75% of the loan on payroll, that the other portion that is not forgiven does turn into a 2-year term at 1%. So it is pretty easy terms as well. Again, if you have multiple businesses, you can apply. We do have worksheets in the Dropbox link that can help you calculate your loan amount because, again, there's a lot of other factors that go into this, like state and local taxes, as well as what are the documents that I'm going to need to present in order to get my loan forgiven. You're going to need, proper documentation, such as, you're using your payroll services, but you will need specific documentation in order to apply for that forgiveness. The forgiveness piece is not an all or nothing. So if you don't spend 75% on payroll, it's not to say that you still won't have a forgiveness piece. It just means that the entire loan won't be forgiven. There is calculations in our worksheet on how to calculate that as well. A lot of questions around, when do I have to spend this money, as well as am I just going to be hiring employees back for them to still not work just to, have the forgiveness piece on the loan? That really is a determination up to the business. We have over 150 consultants in our region that have appointments as early as tomorrow that can help you walk you through this process of not only applying for the EIDL and the PPP, but also determining what are the best options for you. Because again, does it really make sense to hire all your employees back if you temporarily laid them off if there's no business? So really just to work with you on those options. We also help with figuring out or having those discussions with your landlord on rent, lease, abatement, or deferral, as well as different strategies on how to potentially sell online, how to engage with your customers still. So again, we do have over 100 consultants in our 3-county region that are available to you all. And because we are funded both on the federal and state level, all of our resources are at no cost to you. So this is your taxpayer dollars at work here. So utilize us. We are here for you. And again, if you want to join our daily webinar, there's a lot of Q&A that happens. We are looking to bring on experts again for the state loan program to talk more about that, as well as EDD experts, because again, a lot of employee questions, employer-employee questions are coming around. So we want to make sure to get you guys the most useful experts to talk. So with that, I hope I kept it under 5 minutes. Brandon, I'll turn it over.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Very useful information, and I know that many of us have been part of other webinars, or for that matter, business town halls, and this information is repeated over and over, but I think it's probably the most important part of these presentations because it is really a direct link to understanding the programs that are out there, qualifications, and now talking about some technical assistance being provided for those who are interested in applying for these particular dollars. We're going to move into the next presenter, and that's Joaquin Tijerina, the director of the Coachella Valley SBDC, who's on the ground interfacing with many of you and the small business community here in the Coachella Valley. And so, Joaquin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Assemblymember Garcia. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being on this. These kinds of town halls and webinars are all essential to make sure that the local business community is getting the right information. As you all know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I appreciate Katrina going over the majority of the programs out there that are at the disposal of small business here locally. She spoke about the EIDL, the PPP, that there's also another one, the debt relief program, that SBA loans, 7A, 504s, micro and community loans will have a forgivable 6-month period, basically, with SBA paying those loans. Those are existing loans that a business may have, and they can have SBA pay their principal, interest, and any fees for 6 months. And so that's a great opportunity for those who already have loans. A little bit more about the consultants. Katrina spoke about 100 consultants that we have in the Tri-County area. Our Coachella Valley SBDC comes under the OC Inland Empire SBDC, and they're our lead center. They're providing a tremendous amount of resources to us here locally. But the consultants that she spoke about are being kept up to date weekly. We have 3 meetings, virtual meetings, that they are updated with the latest information on what's happening, whether it's the stimulus, it's SBA loans, it's state programs and loans, and even at the county and city level. So our consultants are up to date. I wanted to mention that, as she said, all of the services that we provide through the SBDC, the one-on-one consulting, the training, the informational webinars, are all at no cost and no catch to businesses. A little bit more about SBDC here in Coachella Valley. We're hosted by the County of Riverside Economic Development, and we also have additional resources that we want to make available to the community. And so there is, for information encompassing the county, we have a website that has all of the information that businesses can utilize, whether it's employee-employer relations, what's happening, keeping up with the numbers, and what is the latest. It's rivcobizhelp.org, RIVCOBIZHELP.org. And it has all, like I said, all the local programs in the county that are being administered here locally. Another resource I think that's very important for the community is the employee and business owner information. And so the County of Riverside also has a website where you can go and get information. If you're an employee, you want to know what's going on, or you want to file for unemployment insurance benefits. And this location, it's rivcoworkforce.com. That's RIVCOWORKFORCE.com. And it's important, I know, that what's happening right now, we're going through this phase. Right now, the 2 basic programs, loan programs that the stimulus package provided, the EIDL and the PPP, are survival tools. That's how we should be looking at them. The PPP is more of a short-term survival tool, and the EIDL could be a longer-term survival tool for about 6 months. Or possibly longer. So don't hesitate to call. Our number where we can be reached is 1-800-616-7232, or you can visit our webpage for the Inland Empire. It's OCIE-smallbusiness.org. Again, those are the great resources. You'll find a lot of information on that web page that can guide you into what's the best course of action for your small business. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll be on the line for any questions.
Thank you very much, Joaquin, and thank you for, you've been working in this region on business development, economic development for some time. I've had the pleasure of working with you for several years, and we appreciate that the familiar face to the community is there helping during this very serious economic crisis that we're facing. We'll now go on to our good friend from the Women's Business Center. Kim, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Assemblyman Garcia, and thank you for asking me to speak. A little bit about this center. Coachella Valley Women's Business Center is a program of the Inland Empire Center for Entrepreneurship at Cal State San Bernardino's Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration. We are also a program of the U.S. Small Business Administration. Similar to the SBDC, we are one of the 3 organizations here in the Valley. There's also SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. So there is a lot of SBA help out here in the Valley. Our mission is to counsel, teach, encourage, and inspire women business owners at every stage of development and expansion of their businesses. However, I think what we really do is to empower women through entrepreneurship. Our focus is on women, in particular, low to moderate income women. However, we assist absolutely everybody, particularly in this time. We have been working with many clients who have called in with needing assistance with either the PPP or the EIDL loans. People who are wondering how to continue on with their businesses when the doors are shuttered. We're doing the best that we can, as I think that all the SBA organizations are, to instill hope and educate the people who contact us. We are looking forward to continuing to work with people and to help them do whatever they can to get their businesses back on track. We have gone to a completely virtual situation. All of our trainings, and there are a lot of them, are now offered as webinars. Our consulting is either by phone or virtually via Zoom. We are actually offering trainings through both the Inland Empire Women's Business Center and the Coachella Valley Women's Business Center. So there's actually a much broader variety of webinars and trainings available. And as Joaquin mentioned, all of our services are free. We are your tax dollars at work. Whomever you choose to reach out to, our message to you is reach out to somebody for help. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, at this time, I think we want to jump right in with Julio and our friends at the Chamber to begin the facilitation of some Q&A. And feel free, I think, to the protocol is raise your hand via the Zoom mechanism. You'll be called on, but I know we did have some questions that were sent to us beforehand that we'd like to run down and direct them to the appropriate person that's with us. And look, we may not have all the answers, and if we don't, we're going to let you know. And we promise to get back to you within 24 hours with a response to your question. We have people from cities, from the education community, a lot of small business representatives, those who work directly and indirectly with our small business owners. And so again, I want to thank you for being with us, and let's get to the Q&A part of this session. So Julio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Assemblymember Garcia. It's actually Brandon. Julio does have a question. I'll have him get to that in a minute. We've had quite a few questions submitted in advance. So you may ask a question by using the Zoom feature, raise your hand. That can usually be found in the participants portion of your screen. Some browsers are a little bit different, but it'll be within the Zoom app. Please be respectful and concise with your questions. Allow as many people as possible to ask questions. So we will try to get through the ones that were submitted first. However, our Julio does actually have a question for you, so I am going to go ahead and unmute him now and allow him to ask.
Thank you, Brandon. This question is for you, Assemblymember. I know that you had mentioned that you guys are still not in recess due to the pandemic right now. Do you anticipate the legislature, or will you guys be allowed to do your duties from home?
So that's a good question. Right now, we are set to return to legislative session on May 4th. That is the scheduled date for us to get back and begin rolling out our legislative agenda. We've been told to reduce our bill packages significantly and ensure that they focused on economic recovery and our direct or indirect issues related to COVID-19 on the public health aspect of things. So to answer your question, May 4th is when we are scheduled to return. A lot of talk from the County Public Health of Sacramento and the governor's office as it relates to a peak of positive infections with COVID-19 in the middle of May. So I would imagine that the date could be fluid and could potentially change. Our Assembly committee is getting together with its members regularly to discuss the issues related to water parks and wildlife. In this case, at the center of this discussion is the issue of water shutoffs and the executive order that the governor put forward, making sure that agencies, both public and private, are allowing for that type of economic relief. And at the same time, that the Water Board of the state of California be focused on assisting these water agencies with the economic hardships that they'll be facing, not seeing those revenues come in as a result of putting a pause button on utility bills coming from businesses and households. So May 4th is when we're scheduled to return. Our Democratic Caucus specifically is meeting twice a week for 2 hours in this particular fashion and over the phone to go over the updates coming from the governor's office, as well as reports from our budget chairs, our governmental organizations that focuses on emergency services, our public health chair from the health committee. And so we are meeting regularly, and there's also some due diligence being done on whether or not, if the May 4th deadline is not met for us to return, how we may be able to conduct some business remotely. That's still something that's being looked at by the attorneys. I think we have the technology to do so, but the question is some of the constitutional abilities to be able to do that. So that's the answer. Hopefully it's been a full answer to your question.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Before we do get into the remainder of the questions, I do want to remind everyone that we are recording the call. We unfortunately did hit our maximum number of participants into the event. We will be publishing it somewhere after the event where people will be able to view and hear what was done on the call. So we'll go ahead and jump into the remainder of the questions. The first one is, when will we be able to get back to work?
So I think I mentioned May 4th is when they're saying we will get back to legislative session. You know, our work right now is focused in our districts with our constituents and providing these types of informational resources, as well as dealing with constituent casework. But right now, with the projections and the modeling talking about peaks in middle of May, I think that it's safe to say that it won't be this month that people will return back to work if they are not part of the essential services job list. And I also believe and anticipate that this could potentially go through the month of May as well. That is why these resources that are being talked about are extremely important to help between the period that we've implemented the state. We potentially reopen our economy to all businesses here in the state of California, and certainly for the people of Imperial and Coachella Valley, along with the Palo Verde communities, which I'm sure is the urgency that when we return. I think it's safe to say that it's not in April, and if modeling continues, and as you see the rate of testing and positive results as it relates to the infection, along with Imperial County, I think it's safe to say that the month of May may also be carried over for this stay-home order. And I think, as tough as it may be, to say it's something to be said about wanting to ensure that we protect the public health of Californians and the people who we represent in this district, but that we also do everything that we can to support our small businesses that are in a financial crunch, and those who are, that we get them processed to receive these benefits, whether it be the direct benefits from the state or the supplemental benefits that are coming from the federal government. So I think it's going to be some time still, and that's just me speaking candidly in the coming weeks as it relates to us dealing with this pandemic that's before us. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Assemblymember. The next question is, many businesses and residents have been unable to pay their rent during this time. As we do not have any businesses to generate revenue, is there a rent relief plan in the works at the state or federal level?
So I think, thank you for that question. There were two individuals who touched a bit on that. I think Katrina was one, and I think Joaquin was the other. So I'll defer the question to both of them, if they could chime in at this point.
I have Katrina on the line now. Could you remind me who the second one was again? I apologize.
Joaquin.
Joaquin.
Yeah, so it's really a landlord by landlord case. So we have templates that can help you create an email or a letter to your landlord to discuss rent deferment or abatement. So we can help in that process, but there really isn't something that's standardized, at least on the state level, to where it's a guaranteed notion. So we are helping clients through that with their particular landlord. Joaquin?
And so here in Riverside County, obviously the residential has been something that is covered under the order, but there was a question whether business, commercial properties was. There's been some go back and forth on that. The best thing that we can say about that is what Katrina has mentioned, is talk to your landlord. You know, they're they can be in a bind themselves, and so talk to them and search out the information. We have some on our website at ritcobizhelp.org, and we provide that information in there to give you some information, but we do not want to say that definitely that's being included as commercial in that order.
Thank you to both of you.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and move to our next question. It seems unfair the way the shutdown has worked. I have been told that my retail shop had to close because I am not an essential business, yet Walmart and Target have remained open and are selling the exact same merchandise, clothes, I have been told I can't sell. Why does the government get to pick winners and losers in all of this?
So that's an excellent question. And I think the response would be that if you are a business that's selling food, you've been considered an essential service business to continue to be operating. If you are someone that is tied or connected to essential service jobs, supplier, vendor to our water agencies, our public works departments, etc., you too have been considered and put on the essential jobs list. We'd love to hear more specifics about this specific case. But if you sell food and you're not on the essential jobs list, that may be something that we want to take a look at. Look, there's currently some debate here locally on whether or not Mathis Brothers should be open. I think it's very clear that it's not an essential service. And the county has, I believe, come out and stated that. And we believe that it's the job of the city, the leadership at the city, to convey that message and to enforce the list of essential services in the city. We all would love all businesses to be open, but I think it's very clear that furniture selling with an open floor show is probably not the most and beneficial thing to be doing, where you're having people congregate and potentially putting at risk the public health of many, many people. And so I don't know if that was one of the anticipated questions, but I think it's along the lines of this particular question. We'd love for this individual who asked this question to contact our office at 760-347-2360 to get some more details about your business.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. And yes, that actually was one of the questions, so you went ahead and knocked that one out. Next one is we have seen a lot of relief coming from the federal government. Will we be seeing the state take any action to help businesses that are struggling?
Absolutely. And, one of the first actions that the governor took as it relates to some economic relief for our small businesses was a deferral of the sales tax, up to $50,000 for businesses with less than $5 million in taxable sales. What the state of California is doing is leveraging the dollars that are coming in from the federal government. And for those programs that businesses do not qualify for, we've set up a program that's going to be run through the iBank to make sure that we're able to support our small businesses in that aspect. And you can rest assured that as we move forward in the coming weeks and months, much of our focus legislatively and from a budgetary standpoint will be focused on the economy, on recovery, and assisting the small businesses, the nonprofits that are out there doing work related to community services that we hope to be able to support financially in order to make those organizations work effectively and efficiently. But right now, we're trying to leverage every single dollar that the federal government is putting forward. And we believe, as the 5th largest economy of the world, that much of that money will come to this state. And now it's our job, mine, Chad Mays, our congressman, our local government officials, and our county supervisor, to do everything that we can to bring those resources to the region. For me, it's from the Coachella Valley all the way down to the Arizona border to address the Blythe needs as well as the needs of Imperial County.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember. And another question for you. Who in the state is working on the plan to reopening, and who is representing the business interest in those decisions?
So the economic development arm of the state is the Go Biz agency. And they work in partnership with the SBA, SBDCs of the state of California. It's going to be very critical that small businesses, whether it be through our chambers of commerce or other small business associations, collectively and unified manner, begin to advocate for the needs of our small business communities. These types of forums allow for a voice to be put forward and share ideas for us to be considering the real implementation of many of the existing programs and programs that need to be modified, as Tony Simons mentioned earlier. And maybe, Tony, you want to add to that a bit, and or any of our representatives from our small business community to add some points to that question. But the governor's economic development arm is the Go Biz agency. And of course, economists and other economic specialists that are his advisors, but it will be very critical for us to have the voice of our local community, small business interests, make its way to the table to be able to provide guidance and some leadership on how we get our economy back going as it relates to small businesses. So Tony or anyone else, if you'd like to add to that.
Tony, I have you unmuted.
Yeah, thank you. So I did just share, and Brandon shared with everybody, the GoBiz webpage that links to the range of services. Some are federal, but it clearly you can access all the state programs, including our funding and support for the SBDC Women's Centers. This is one of the things that our committee is working on relative to helping inform. We are holding, as I said, every 2 weeks, we're having conversations with stakeholders and then reporting that up through the Speaker's office. The administration, GoBiz, is participating in those conversations, as well as one-off conversations. But the governor also, in his own organization with the Office of Emergency Services, they have a specific task force about economic development. It's one of the early task force that they have. So I do believe that there are multiple mechanisms for informing that component. But listening to the governor, of course, the key is, our communities, and it'll be phased in, are different communities ready for the reopening? And he set the basis around that.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else like to kind of add into the response given your role with small business agencies tied to the state? All right, we'll move on to the next question, Brandon.
Okay, I see California is working with Washington on a plan to reopen. Why Washington and not Arizona or states that actually border us?
I think it's a pretty, that's a good question. And I think it's a pretty straightforward question. I think there are similar guiding principles that our leaders, our governors of these three states have. And that's probably why this partnership has formed. And I think that for us, those partnerships are going to be critical to addressing economies of scale as it relates to our purchasing powers, to be able to obtain the necessary PPE, ventilators that our healthcare professionals will need. And I think that would be the best answer that I could give to you. It is really the alignment of guiding principles that we share in values. And the leaders of these three states have decided that this partnership will allow us to also work in unison as it relates to the work that needs to be done and interfacing that needs to take place with our federal government.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And Tony actually pointed out that they're also working with Oregon as well. Oregon and Washington both.
That's right.
Okay, and is there still another question? Is there still a chance we'll get a new university?
Absolutely. That is a good question. You know, the state has currently put out an effort, the Cal State University system, to do some due diligence on 4 particular regions. And I, being biased to this region, believe that we are best suited to take on what could potentially be the next Cal State University. Whether or not we are set back because of financial circumstances and this COVID-19 crisis that's before us may only just be a delay in that conversation. But rest assured that there is an assertive effort by regional leadership to push and make the strongest case that this region is best prepared to take on the university, from the commitments made by our local communities like the city of Palm Desert, to the entrepreneurs and philanthropy community that have helped stand up the campus here on Cook Street, and the growing population and projections of this region that have already in place the partnerships with the K-12 system and the community college system, along with vital industries to our economy here in the region. So I think we have a good case to make. I know early on there were some conversations about the decision having already been predetermined. Last year during budget, Stockton was a community that sounded to be very well positioned and politically positioned well to get this school. But I think based on data and what we've accomplished collectively here in this community for the Cal State University to get off the ground today, I think we're very well positioned. Chad Mays and I have made this a priority over the last several years and successful in getting some money to expand some of the programs there today. And so rest assured that we're going to make every effort possible to secure that. It is tied to economic development and certainly economic recovery moving forward for our region. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Do you think we will see an overhaul of the state medical system coming out of this?
That's a good question. And, there have been efforts to improve and modify the existing programs. Given the financial projections that are before us, that may be something that is that much more challenging and something that will happen incrementally. We've allowed for more people to be covered under Medi-Cal. I think that is a budget question that maybe Jason can help address in the context of, revenues and projections. But there is certainly a commitment to ensure that modifications to the system are made for the purpose of covering more people. And at the same time, you can't just do that and not increase, and what we're seeing today, the infrastructure, the medical infrastructure capacity in order to deliver the care. And so maybe Jason can touch a little bit on the financial aspects of modifying our Medi-Cal programs in the state of California.
Well, there's no doubt that California has acted more than other states to expand coverage through the Medi-Cal system, but also providing more subsidies for lower and some middle-income Californians through Covered California. So in our tough budget times, we're going to have some challenges sustaining all of those expenditures. The good news is that Congress and the Trump administration have been cooperative so far in providing more funds for state Medi-Cal costs, in providing Medicaid programs all around the country with more flexibility. And so we've had some progress there. We'll be seeking more help from Congress. I think one of the things that the governor addressed yesterday is that in addition to covering more low-income Californians, we face a couple of challenges as a result of this crisis that we'll probably have to be thinking about this year. The first is because hospitals have reduced elective surgeries and other services, we actually have a lot of components of our healthcare system that are struggling even as we ramp up other parts to deal with the virus. We have reports of a lot of practices that aren't directly involved in providing services for the virus that are about to shut down, and that's something that the governor mentioned yesterday and the policymakers are looking at. Another thing is public health, the sort of testing and contact tracing that would be needed in the governor's plan to reopen the economy. Our local public health authorities all up and down the state and all around the country are going to need more resources to really put that in action over the next few months and maybe even the next few years where we're dealing with this virus. So I think that those are some things that even with our tough budget challenges, both members of Congress and members of the legislature are going to be considering.
Thank you, Jason. Next question, Brandon.
Okay, so the schools have mostly converted to distance learning. Do you think this could be a trend for the future? It would save us a lot of money on public infrastructure.
Let me begin by sharing with you that our educators today and those providing services to our families, like those that are providing meals in our school districts across our district, need to be commended and acknowledged for the work that they're doing. And we also need to consider them as we are talking about protecting them from the spread of this virus and making sure that they have the necessary protective equipment as well. Look, this distance learning directive that has been put forward due to the cancellation of school for the rest of the year is really a challenge, to say the least. It has been a challenge in more ways than one, beginning with the ability to access these types of opportunities via broadband internet, because quite frankly, we don't have it in all places of our district, whether you're talking about Imperial County, Eastern Coachella Valley, or the Blythe communities. So we are shortchanging our children as a result of not being able to have the adequate infrastructure to provide the necessary teaching today. So we're working through a lot of those kinks. Our special needs students who have individualized education plans are also not receiving the full extent of their educational plans being implemented. And that's a challenge in itself, and also faces some potential legal aspects. Now, we have a lot of work to do. And the superintendent of schools, Tony Thurman, a former colleague from the Assembly, has said that we have to move forward with this distance learning plan because we cannot let the school year go to wayside. And so there are a lot of logistics and technicalities that are being worked on to be able to do everything that we can to effectively reach our students at home. I have 2 teenagers, and you know, my wife is working. She's part of the essential services job list. So my role, aside from doing the constituent work that we're doing, is also pseudo dean of discipline with the 2 teenagers to make sure that they're staying on task with their work, and also serving as a kindergarten teacher, teaching, you know, some very basic and fundamentals to our daughter. And the interaction from a distance is somewhat of a challenge with their educators, and I've seen it firsthand. Could this be a way of the future? Most definitely, when in fact we have the adequate infrastructure so that all Californians have access to broadband and be able to connect in order to have an efficient and effective system in place. But I can tell you right now that we're having some significant challenges. We met with the 3 superintendents of our school districts and have been in conversations with those in Imperial County and in Blythe. And it has been a challenge, but we're doing. And I commend again the workers out there that are providing meals and the teachers that are connecting with our students, and the leadership of our school districts that are doing everything they can to make sure that we're delivering on a promise of providing a good quality education for our students. But could this be a way of the future? Most definitely. But look, there's nothing more than the socialization that happens in our classes, in our classrooms, and the interaction and the teaching and learning that takes place in our classrooms and in our schools that a computer or technology would replace. And I think that's extremely valuable to mention, because I think it's important that we continue to push in the direction of our students interacting with people from all walks and, you know, shapes of life, to be able to teach and learn from one another and really build the tolerance and the respect for one another that happens when we meet people in person. But good question, long answer, I know, but I think it's important that I express to you what is a good portion of my opinion and the reality of the challenges that are taking place as it relates to this distance learning. But the superintendent of education has been very accessible and communicating directly with superintendents to try to address the individual needs of school districts. And we want to offer that as well to those who are on the line, the educators that are with us, or others who are interested from the business community, to have these conversations with the superintendent, his team and leadership, to be able to, again, deliver a good quality education for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And actually, our Chamber CEO, Joshua Bonner, did want to make a comment on this topic as well.
Absolutely.
And Josh, I believe your line is open.
Thank Thank you, Assemblymember Brandon. I appreciate it. I just wanted to let everyone know that next Wednesday, in partnership with One Future, we'll be hosting 3 superintendent conference. We'll send for that shortly to our membership community. It will be open and free to attend for everyone, but we'll all 3 of the local superintendents on a conference call together.
Thank you, Josh. And Assemblymember, I'll go ahead, and if it's okay with you, I'll move on to the next question.
Please.
Okay, we have, why is there an inconsistency between state of California mandated law and what Riverside County permits? Will we see a correction with what our governor has put in place for the state of California and what Riverside County is allowing to happen?
Well, that's a good question. And we know that what the state of California is directing is what the law of the land is. There is some flexibility that is being given to counties in specific areas. And I think the question merits a little more specific detail, but I can tell you that early on, there was some inconsistencies with the stay home order. There were some reservations by county public health officials and even some of our city leaders to adopt a stay home policy. And there was a conversation at the Coachella Valley Association of Governments that took place, led by our supervisor and our congressman, where there was a lot of hesitation to move in this direction. And then a few days after that, the governor came in with his executive order. So there have been some inconsistencies from that standpoint, but nevertheless, there has been a tremendous amount of consistency and coordination happening between the federal government, the state, and our departments of public health, along with our local government entities, our mayors, our water agencies, our school officials, to try to do the best that we can to have a consistent implementation of many of the orders that are coming from the state, or for that matter, from the federal government. But more specifics to the question would be appreciated, and I would welcome that question to be made directly to our office, 760-347-2360, to be able to address it in a more specific manner.
Thank you, Assemblymember. And we are running somewhat close up to time. We're going to try to do a couple more questions. If we weren't able to get to yours, again, the information that the Assemblymember just gave, we'll be sending out as well. That way you can get in direct contact with his office. The next question will be, have you heard anything for 1099 workers? I'm being told that EDD isn't ready for them and SBO programs are also not helping. Is there an answer for them?
There is, and that's an excellent question. 2 weeks from now, that application will be up and going. And what was committed to us yesterday by the director and agency of EDD was that those applications will not take 3 weeks to be certified and approved. It will be in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. And again, that is a program coming from the federal government that will allow eligible workers that traditionally were not qualified for the unemployment insurance of the state of California, that would allow for them to apply. And of course, the EDD agency will determine whether or not your 1099 independent contractor work ultimately qualifies, and of course the criteria of being impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. But we were told that that website will be up in 2 weeks, and it will not take more than 24 to 48 hours to process that. Let me share with you that the call center for EDD is now open from 6 to 8 p.m. They have brought on over 300 individuals to assist from other agencies to take these calls. And one thing to note, we were told that Sunday, Easter, folks were given the option to volunteer to work, not expecting many people to raise their hand and do so. And there were over 500 people that came in and worked a full day to process these unemployed insurance claims for Californians. We have over 2 million people that have applied. They're processing over 200,000 applications a day. And so there is a lot of work, but we've gotten a commitment that we're going to get to everyone. And again, if you have any questions about applying, any details, you can visit the EDD website. And we have a dedicated COVID-19 website on our Assembly website that you can also visit. But if you have any specific questions, you can also call our office again at 760-347-2360.
Okay, and I believe this is probably going to be our last one due to time. And any questions that were left over, we did note them down, and we will be sending them to the Assembly member's office. EIDL says that you can get $10,000 immediately, but a call yesterday with SBA Santa Ana confirmed that the $10,000 advance at present is being limited to $1,000 per employee. And this was actually asked if Katrina could reconcile that guidance from her presentation. However, I know Katrina had to step off the call because she had another one she had to get to. So I don't know if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
I'm going to see if any of our other partners that are on the line, whether Joaquin, Kim, may have some information on that, or for that matter, Tony. I don't, but certainly commit to looking into the matter and following up with the person that asked that question, if you'll send that to us and our team.
Hi, this is Tony. I actually was, I saw communication from the district office of the SBA out of San Francisco yesterday, and that is exactly the information that I heard. As everybody knows, there are large discussions in Congress right now about continuing to fund the programs, but I did hear that instead of $10,000, it's limited to $1,000 per employee. This is the cash advance component of the Economic Impact Disaster Loan Program. I searched last night to try something up, find something on the SBA website. I've not seen anything, any written guidance, but I did see it in a newsletter.
Just to add a little bit to that, that is correct. The payroll protection, the Paycheck Protection Plan is needs to be 75% of it needs to be about payroll and those associated operating expenses, and that's correct. That only the $1,000 per each employee is what they will allow for the grant portion of that. So if of that money that is received, at least 75% of the money is used on payroll, then the whole loan will be up to the $10,000 would be forgiven. Otherwise, it turns into that a loan that's paid back at 1% over the within 2 years.
Thank you so much. And Assemblymember, we have a few more we're going to get sent over to you all. I wanted to ask if there's anything you had in closing, and then I'm going to actually pass it over to Joshua Bonner.
Well, look, I want to say thank you to all of you who have signed on to this conversation this morning. I also want to recognize those who have joined us as expert witnesses, we call them, when they provide information at the Capitol on legislation, but our friends from the small business community, our budget director for the Assembly, and of course our consultant for the Jobs Committee, Tony, for making the time to join us. They also, will be given the opportunity to help us address some of the questions that you may have that we were unable to get around to. I just wanted to let you know that, we continue to be active and available to our constituents and to the businesses, and wanted to again repeat, our office hours in Coachella is 760-347-2360. In Imperial County, it's 760-355-8656. And so we are there answering calls, responding to your questions and concerns from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, as we have been. So I want to just make sure that you know that we continue to be available. Our website, asmdc.org/egarcia. We have a lot of the information that we talked about today, and there is a specific COVID-19 .ca.gov website link as well on our website that will provide information. Now, we didn't talk a lot about, the rate of positive infections and the numbers at the state level and the local level, but that information is available at the website for the California Department of Public Health, cdph.ca.gov. If you want to keep track to the information coming out as it relates to the rate of infections and where we're at on that front, or you can just follow the mayor of Coachella, who posts something every day about the regional numbers, as well as the county of Imperial, who is putting numbers out that are looking at cases by zip code as well. Look, for me, it's important that we stay connected, that we stay active, and that we continue these types of communications. I look forward to doing this again with the chamber and or any of the other individuals who are here logged in. Send us your ideas, send us your thoughts, questions that remain unanswered, ideas on issues that we should be taking a look at, ideas for legislation, whether it be coming from our public or private entities. We want to hear from you. We definitely want to hear from you. And I also just want to thank again all of those who are doing amazing work in partnership with our frontline workers. The healthcare district is doing some amazing work in partnership with the locals to do some increased testing. The water agencies, I know, are working with our families and our constituents as it relates to the hold on payments. Our cities are doing everything they can to both enforce the essential services, businesses to either be open or not in some cases. And of course, our educators who are out there as well, providing food, meals for our families, our children, and those teachers that are, now having to navigate through a new process of teaching and learning with our students. Look, thank you again, Chamber, for putting this together and working with our team. I think it's been a good conversation, and I look forward to doing this again with you all. God bless you. And again, stay home, stay safe. And as they say, we're actually flattening the curve and saving lives as a result of that. I'm hoping that we are back moving forward and with our thriving economy of the state and the work that needs to be done. I'll just close with this. Before COVID-19, we had housing issues. We had issues related to homelessness. We have issues related to our educational system. We have issues related to the environment, related to water, clean air, issues related to regulation and helping our small businesses and our large businesses create job opportunities for the region. Those issues haven't gone away. And so we have to find a way to make sure that those issues also stay front and center in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis and as we move forward with legislative priorities and economic recovery efforts. So I just wanted to mention to you that those things don't fall off the radar because they were issues then and they will remain issues moving forward. So thank you again for your attention today. God bless you all. And we look forward to seeing you soon again. Take care.
Thank you, Assemblymember. We appreciate it. Your office has been great with. I talk to Aurora quite often, and we appreciate all the information coming out of your office as well as Assemblymember May's office. We continue to try to get information to our membership as best we can and to get it out to the community. I certainly want to thank my city partners, the City of Indio, Coachella, Indian Wells, Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, La Quinta. They've all been great to work with. And we'll continue to hold these. We hope to see everyone on our next call, which will be next Wednesday with our 3 superintendents to get some information on our educational system. With that, I wish everyone a good day, and we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.